We begin tonight with some really exciting news from the world of technology and medicine.
Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg and his wife, Dr. Priscilla Chan, have a new mission, curing all disease. The two launching the aptly named Chan-Zuckerberg Initiative, $3 billion toward curing, preventing, and managing all disease by the end of the century.
But it makes sense. It makes sense that Mark Zuckerberg wants to cure every disease, because think about it. Once old people die, there's going to be no one left using Facebook.
The Clinton Foundation has reportedly alerted staff that there will be dozens of layoffs at the end of the year. Said one staffer, "Please be me, please. Oh, please be me that's available."
Media experts say Monday night's presidential debate will have a Super Bowl-sized TV audience. Yeah. Of course, the Super Bowl audience drinks for fun, but Monday's debate audience will be drinking out of sheer terror. Numb. I want to be numb.
Drink every time Trump says anything.
Yeah.
I saw this online today. If you're looking for a political costume, this is a... You could be sexy Hillary Clinton, which is just Hillary with no pants on. That's how she got pneumonia, by the way. Or you could be sexy Donald Trump if you're on the other side. Or you could maintain a shred of dignity and be neither of them for Halloween. Who the hell would wear this? The only person I can imagine dressing up for Halloween as sexy Donald Trump is Donald Trump himself.
Headlines and punchlines for this Friday, and as the comics made brief mention, we're now just a weekend away from the first presidential debate between Mrs. Clinton and Mr. Trump, and with many polls showing the two neck and neck, Miranda Kahn joins us with a prime preview now to talk about what has occurred in North Carolina, how it may influence what happens in terms of the debate. Miranda?
Yeah, JD, while the situation in Charlotte appears to be calmer after 2 days of violence and unrest, Donald Trump wants to make it clear he is the law and order candidate.
The rioting in our streets is a threat to all peaceful citizens, and it must be ended, and ended now.
On the contrary, Hillary Clinton said this to her supporters.
I'm sending condolences and prayers to their families. I know a lot of you are as well.
Now, as you just heard, the two messages vary drastically, not only in tone, but give us a sense of what we can possibly expect, JD, Monday night. We're going to share more of what they said on the campaign trail and what it reveals about the candidates tonight on Newsmax Prime.
And we look forward to that, Miranda. And of course, earlier in this program, we heard a more complete soundbite from Donald Trump,
right,
where he said the violence has to stop, but then he held harmless the majority of the black community.
Right.
So it was a very interesting rhetorical
a clever move,
pivot.
I thought.
Well, not only clever, it recognizes
from a
reality.
political standpoint,
yeah,
there, like he was trying to please all sides.
Well,
this.
what
And
certainly
pivoting
not
more towards the general election, you would say?
Well, what I would say is the basic notion is that politics is the art of addition, and you go out and you get more. Especially, imagine if Donald Trump picks up 20% of the African American vote nationwide. That would effectively end Mrs. Clinton's chance to win, because how heavily the Democrats rely on 90 to 95% of the black vote. Conversely, you see that from Mrs. Clinton, who rhetorically runs right into the arms of Black Lives Matter. Obviously, it's a debate we'll continue tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern. Miranda Kahn with a prime preview. Thanks very, very much.
My pleasure.
Well, now, we call this program America Talks Live. And that's what we're going to do right now at 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-639-7629. We head out to a place I know pretty well. In fact, for a time, I represented this community in the Congress of the United States, to Anthem, Arizona, where Jonathan joins us. Hi, Jonathan. Jonathan, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am.
Good to have you, sir. What's on your mind this Friday?
Two things, JD. First of all, something I think that might help with the upcoming vote. Back in 2008, a Republican congressman from Nebraska sponsored a bill called the Child Soldier Protection Act, which was passed. In 2011 and 2012, Hillary Clinton gave a waiver to South Sudan and provided $1.2 billion in military aid South Sudan who is using children as soldiers.
Now, you have pointed out something that is a vulnerability, Jonathan. It is the great thing about America Talks Live, because you call with your input, and perhaps the Trump people are listening to this because this is something that has not been brought to light by most of the mass media. But of course, what we do here on America Talks Live is talk about those stories that the alphabet networks don't want to cover because they're not really. Well, let's put it this way. They're mindful of the P's and Q's of political correctness. Joining me now, a guy who I think is correct as a conservative, but far from politically correct. He represented the state of Pennsylvania for 2 decades in the House. He is my old friend, Bob Walker. And Bob, it is so good to have you here on America Talks Live. I got to tell you, your home state of Pennsylvania, the Trump people say it is critical. Does Trump have a chance to close the gap with Hillary and take your home state, Bob?
You know, I think really Pennsylvania could end up being the fulcrum of this campaign because not only is the presidency at stake in Pennsylvania, the Senate may be at stake in Pennsylvania. And I really do believe that we've got a good chance of carrying both. The fact is that the minority populations in Philadelphia are not particularly enthusiastic about Hillary Clinton. It's the reason why Obama was up there just a couple of days ago, or back I guess it was last week. The Philadelphia suburbs will be difficult for Donald Trump. But when you get out into the rest of the state, he is doing very well, and particularly he's doing well in western Pennsylvania among Democratic towns out there, old steel towns, old coal mining towns. And all of those towns are seeing a surge of Trump support. And those are votes that Democrats used to count on in Pennsylvania, and they're not going to get them this year.
So the guys we used to call the Reagan Democrats, the blue-collar conservatives who still are Democrats, well, a lot of them have changed parties, we understand, out in the rural areas of Pennsylvania. But we should note for the record, Bob, the last 3 polls conducted in September all show Hillary with about a 5 to 6 point margin when you average them all together in terms of the real clear politics average of the polling. We can see the different polls right there on our screen right now. But I am curious, as you talk about those conservative Reagan Democrats coming over to Trump, how big is the concern that suburban Republicans in areas like Philadelphia, and especially suburban Republican women, might end up going over to Hillary?
Well, I think that's a concern, and it's something that the Trump campaign needs to address between now and November 8th. But on the polls, I would also say to you that a lot of the polling is being done of likely voters, which is using the 2012 measurement. That's a measurement which had a huge turnout in Philadelphia for President Obama. And those polls may not reflect what the reality of the polls, or the reality of the vote, I should say, in Pennsylvania this year.
Bob Walker, we have to ask you, and for purposes of full disclosure, we should note that you were an advisor to John Kasich, as was another former colleague, Pete Hoekstra, who appears on this program and who is now all in for Donald Trump. Where would you describe where you are right now? Are you a reluctant Trumper? Are you now supporting the entire ticket? Where does Bob Walker tread politically heading into the general election?
Well, I heard the campaign manager for Ted Cruz the other day say that Ted Cruz is on a journey. I feel as though I'm on a journey too, but I will say that I am impressed with the outreach that the Trump campaign is doing to minority communities at the present time. I think it's something that Republicans have had to do for a long, long time, and we haven't done it very well. And the fact that Trump is reaching out to constituencies that we have struggled with, I think is a positive sign for his campaign. And on my journey, I'm putting that in the very positive column.
So that is in the positive column. But the ultimate outreach is, of course, Donald Trump to Bob Walker. Have you heard from the nominee or from his senior staff in Pennsylvania?
I haven't talked to them directly and so on, but I will tell you that here in my home where I am right now, we're going to have Mike Pence in our house in a couple of weeks. raising money for the campaign. And so that gives you some hint as to the direction I'm headed.
Well, it sounds to me that we don't have to be too reticent. Sounds to me like Brother Bob Walker, as befits his last name, is taking a slow and deliberate path to the top of the ticket. Plus, Pence is such a polite guy. He's not going to make a mess when he comes to the House to visit. And as a vice president, he'll do a good job having a man of the House preside over the Senate. Bob Walker, rules expert extraordinaire during his days in the House, led a lot of great floor fights. I was there for some of them, and the former chairman of the Science Committee. Bob, thanks so much for your time today on America Talks Live. Really appreciate it. Now, coming up next, this day in history, and you'll want to stay tuned because it's a very important day to me personally. I'll explain why as we continue with your calls.